What if the key to unlocking your true potential, to shattering the invisible barriers holding you back, wasn't about acquiring something new, but about rebooting the very way you think? Imagine a mind cleared of persistent negative chatter, a mind agile enough to turn setbacks into stepping stones, and strong enough to build a reality filled with purpose and joy. This isn't a distant dream reserved for a select few. It's a capability dormant within you, waiting for the right signal to awaken. This journey we're embarking on together will equip you with the practical tools to silence the inner critic, to dismantle limiting beliefs, and to actively rewire your thought patterns. You will learn not just to cope, but to genuinely thrive, transforming your inner world to reshape your outer reality. The power to change is already yours. This is your guide to switching it on. Brain Reboot, Rewiring Negative Thoughts to Thrive, written and published by Brainpower Blueprint. Chapter 1. Pause the Thought Spiral. Have you ever felt trapped on a runaway train of your own thoughts, each one more negative and overwhelming than the last, pulling you further into a tunnel of anxiety or despair with no emergency brake in sight? This isn't a rare occurrence. It's a profoundly human experience, a mental whirlwind that can seize control, leaving you feeling powerless, exhausted, and far from the calm, rational person you aspire to be. Imagine this: you make a small mistake at work. Instantly, your mind doesn't just register the error, it explodes. "I'm going to get fired," it screams, followed by, "I'm so incompetent I'll never succeed anywhere," and then, "This is just like that other time I failed. I'm a complete disaster." Before you know it, one minor slip-up has snowballed into a full-blown crisis of confidence, your heart racing, your palms sweating, your focus shattered. This is the thought spiral, a vortex of negativity that feeds on itself, growing stronger and faster with each passing moment. You might find yourself replaying conversations, dissecting every word, every perceived slight, searching for evidence to confirm your deepest fears. Or perhaps you worry incessantly about the future, painting catastrophic scenarios that leave you paralyzed by what-ifs. This isn't just unproductive, it's actively detrimental to your well-being, your relationships, and your ability to function effectively. The real problem isn't just the presence of negative thoughts. Those are a natural part of the human experience, but the uncontrolled momentum they gain, the way they link together and drag you down. You feel like a passenger, not the driver, of your own mind. You long for an off switch, a way to reclaim your mental peace, but the harder you try to fight the thoughts, the more persistent they often become. This cycle keeps you stuck, reacting to old patterns instead of responding to the present moment with clarity and purpose. The constant mental agitation drains your energy, making even simple tasks feel monumental and robbing you of the joy and engagement that life has to offer. But what if there was a way to gently apply the brakes, to step off that speeding train before it derails completely? What if you could create just enough space to catch your breath, to see the thoughts for what they are? Just thoughts, not absolute truths, and to choose a different path. The transformative solution lies in learning to pause the thought spiral. This isn't about suppressing your thoughts or pretending negativity doesn't exist. It's about developing the crucial skill of conscious interruption, of creating a momentary gap between the stimulus of a negative thought and your habitual, spiraling reaction. Think of it as pressing a mental pause button. In that pause, however brief, lies your power. It's the space where you can shift from being consumed by your thoughts to being an observer of your thoughts. This shift is profound. It allows you to interrupt the automatic chain reaction of negativity, preventing it from gaining that unstoppable momentum. The core idea is that by intentionally creating these pauses, you regain a sense of control, not by forcefully stopping the thoughts, but by unhooking yourself from their emotional charge and their escalating narrative. The benefits are immediate and far-reaching. Reduced anxiety, increased clarity, better decision-making, and a greater sense of inner calm. You start to realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. This seemingly simple act of pausing is the first and most critical step in rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways that support a more balanced and constructive way of thinking. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. Initially, it takes conscious effort and you might wobble, but with practice, it becomes an intuitive skill that grants you incredible freedom. So how do you actually press this mental pause button when the storm of thoughts is raging? The first step is recognition and acknowledgement. You cannot pause what you are not aware of. This means cultivating a degree of self-awareness to notice when a negative thought spiral is beginning to form. It might be a familiar feeling in your body, a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, or a recurring mental theme. When you spot the early signs, don't judge yourself or try to immediately squash the thought. Simply acknowledge its presence. You could say to yourself, there's that worry about the presentation again, or I recognize this feeling of being overwhelmed. This act of naming it, of acknowledging it without immediately engaging, is the first act of creating distance. It's like seeing a wave approach rather than already being tumbled by it. Why this works is because it shifts you from being fused with the thought to observing it. In practice, this looks like a gentle internal nod, a mental note. Okay, thought spiral detected. Once you've recognized the spiral beginning, the next crucial action is to introduce a deliberate interruption. This is where you actively hit pause. This doesn't have to be a monumental effort. Small, deliberate actions are incredibly powerful. One of the most effective interruption techniques is to shift your physical state. Stand up if you're sitting, stretch, or walk to a different room. A change in posture or environment can create a surprising mental shift. For example, if you're hunched over your desk, catastrophizing about an email, get up, walk to the window, and look outside. The simple act of moving can break the cognitive loop. Another powerful interrupter is to focus on your breath. Take 3 to 5 slow, deep breaths. Inhale deeply through your nose, feeling your abdomen expand, and exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling your body soften. Concentrate fully on the sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. This anchors you in the present moment, pulling your attention away from the racing thoughts about the past or future. This works because deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to calm your body's stress response. In practice, when you feel the spiral, you consciously decide, okay, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths now, and you focus all your attention on that physical act. Another vital technique within the pause is to engage your senses. Thought spirals often happen when we are completely lost in our heads. Bringing your attention to your senses grounds you in the present reality. What are 5 things you can see right now? Name them silently to yourself. What are 4 things you can physically feel? The texture of your clothes, the chair beneath you, the temperature of the air. What are 3 things you can hear? The hum of a computer, distant traffic, your own breathing. 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. This 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique is incredibly effective at pulling your focus out of the abstract world of worry and into the concrete reality of the present. For instance, if you're spiraling before a meeting, you could pause and mentally list, I see my pen, my notepad, the clock, my colleague's blue shirt, the light fixture. This sensory engagement acts as an anchor, preventing your mind from drifting further into the storm. It works because it forces your brain to process current, neutral information, thereby interrupting the flow of emotionally charged negative thoughts. Consider Sarah, who often found herself spiraling into anxiety before social events. The thoughts would start small. What if I don't know anyone? And quickly escalate to, everyone will think I'm awkward and boring, I'll make a fool of myself, I should just stay home. Using the pause technique, Sarah learned to recognize the initial flutter of anxiety as her cue. She would acknowledge it. Okay, this is my social anxiety spiral starting. Then she would deliberately interrupt it. Sometimes she would stand up and do a few stretches. Other times, she'd take a moment to focus on her breathing, counting 10 slow breaths. Her go-to grounding technique was to look around the room and silently name 5 objects and their colors. This didn't magically make her anxiety disappear, but it stopped the escalation. It gave her that crucial moment of clarity to remind herself of past social events that went well, or to tell herself, it's okay to feel a bit nervous, I can handle this. She shifted from being a victim of her thought spiral to an active manager of her mental state. Similarly, Mark, a project manager, used to get caught in spirals of stress about deadlines, imagining all the ways things could go wrong. He started using a simple interruption. Whenever he felt the stress escalating, he would get up from his desk, walk to the water cooler, and drink a glass of water very mindfully, focusing on the sensation of the cool water. This small ritual became his pause button, allowing him to return to his tasks with a slightly calmer and more focused mind. These examples show that pausing the thought spiral isn't about achieving instant enlightenment, but about consistently creating small pockets of awareness and control that, over time, fundamentally change your relationship with your thoughts. It's about building a new habit, a new default response to the onset of negativity. By mastering the art of the pause, you're not just momentarily stopping a negative thought, you're beginning to lay down new neural pathways. You're teaching your brain that there's an alternative to automatic runaway negativity. This simple yet profound skill is the gateway to deeper understanding and more significant change. But what happens after the pause? How do you begin to understand the underlying mechanics of these recurring mental loops so you can dismantle them more permanently? Now that you have a tool to halt the runaway train, are you ready to look under the hood and understand exactly how these thought spirals are constructed and what keeps them going? Our next chapter will guide you to become a detective of your own mind, uncovering the hidden patterns and triggers. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 2. Decode your mental loops. Imagine your mind is like a complex piece of software, running various programs in the background. Some of these programs are helpful, enabling you to perform daily tasks efficiently. But what if some of the oldest, most frequently run programs are actually outdated scripts, full of bugs, that consistently lead to system crashes, those very thought spirals we just learned to pause? It's a frustrating reality for many. You hit the pause button, gain a moment of clarity, only to find the same negative thought patterns re-emerging later, like a stubborn weed in a garden. This happens because pausing, while crucial, is primarily about interruption, not about deconstruction. The problem we face now is that these mental loops are often so ingrained, so automatic, that we rarely question their origin or their logic. They just are. You might feel trapped in a recurring cycle of self-doubt before every new challenge, or perhaps a loop of resentment replays in your mind after every perceived slight. You might wonder, why do I always think this way? Why does this particular situation always trigger me? Without understanding the underlying structure of these loops, the specific triggers, the core beliefs fueling them, and even the subtle, often unacknowledged, payoffs they might offer, we remain at their mercy, constantly fighting fires instead of addressing the source of the ignition. This lack of understanding keeps us reacting rather than responding, making it incredibly difficult to achieve lasting change and feel truly in control of our inner world. It's like trying to fix a recurring engine problem by simply restarting the car each time it stalls, without ever looking at what's actually wrong with the engine itself. The transformative solution is to become a thought detective, to embark on a conscious exploration of your inner landscape with curiosity and courage, aiming to decode the intricate workings of your mental loops. This isn't about self-criticism or judgment, it's about objective investigation. By shining a light of awareness on these patterns, you begin to demystify them. You start to see them not as immutable truths about who you are, but as learned habits of thinking, and learned habits can be unlearned and replaced. The core idea here is that understanding precedes transformation. Once you can map out a mental loop, identify its starting point, the trigger, the pathway it follows, the sequence of thoughts and emotions, and the typical conclusions it reaches, you gain significant power over it. The benefits are immense. You move from being a passive victim of your thoughts to an active agent of your mental well-being. You'll be able to anticipate your patterns, intervene more effectively, and ultimately begin to dismantle the outdated mental software that no longer serves you. This process of decoding allows you to see the man behind the curtain, revealing the often illogical or outdated assumptions that give these loops their power. It's like a detective solving a case. The more clues you gather and connect, the clearer the picture becomes, and the easier it is to find a resolution. The first step in decoding your mental loops is to identify your common triggers. Triggers are specific situations, people, places, words, or even internal states like fatigue or hunger that consistently set off a particular negative thought pattern. Think of them as the spark that ignites the kindling. To become aware of your triggers, you need to practice mindful observation, especially in the moments leading up to or during a thought spiral, even if you've paused it. Ask yourself, what just happened before this feeling or thought pattern started? Was I in a particular place? Was I interacting with a specific person? Did I hear or see something specific? Was I tired or stressed about something else? Keeping a simple trigger log for a week can be incredibly revealing. For example, you might notice that scrolling through social media in the evening consistently triggers feelings of inadequacy or comparison, or perhaps critical feedback, even if constructive, always sends you into a spiral of self-doubt. Recognizing these triggers doesn't mean you have to avoid them entirely, though sometimes that's a helpful temporary strategy, but awareness is the first step to changing your response. Why this works is because triggers often operate below the level of conscious awareness, initiating an automatic reaction. Bringing them into conscious focus breaks that automaticity. In practice, this might look like noting in a journal, felt anxious after seeing X's promotion online, trigger, comparison, social media, or started feeling overwhelmed when asked to lead the new project, trigger, fear of failure, new responsibility. Once you have a better sense of your triggers, the next step is to map the thought-emotion sequence. Negative mental loops aren't usually a single thought. They're a chain reaction of interconnected thoughts and emotions, each one feeding the next. Your task as a thought detective is to trace this sequence. When a trigger occurs, what's the very first thought that pops into your head? And what emotion does that thought generate? Then, what thought follows that emotion? And so on. For example, the trigger might be your boss pointing out an error in your report. First thought, I made a mistake. Neutral observation. Emotion, slight embarrassment. Second thought, this means I'm not good at my job. Negative interpretation. Emotion, anxiety, shame. Third thought, I'm probably going to get overlooked for that promotion. Catastrophizing. Emotion, hopelessness, fear. Fourth thought, I always mess things up. Overgeneralization, self-attack. Emotion, despair. By writing out these sequences, you start to see the specific cognitive distortions at play, like catastrophizing, overgeneralization, mind reading, or black and white thinking that characterize your loops. This mapping helps you pinpoint exactly where your thinking tends to go off track. This works because it externalizes the internal process, making it easier to analyze objectively. It's like watching a replay of a game to understand how a particular play unfolded. In practice, you might take a few minutes after pausing a spiral to jot down trigger, thought 1, emotion 1, thought 2, emotion 2, and so on. The third crucial element in decoding your mental loops is to uncover underlying core beliefs. Often, these repetitive thought spirals are not just random reactions. They are rooted in deeply held, often subconscious, core beliefs about yourself, others, or the world. These beliefs act like the operating system for your mental software, influencing how you interpret experiences and what kinds of thoughts you tend to generate. Examples of common negative core beliefs include, I am not good enough, I am unlovable, the world is a dangerous place, I must be perfect to be accepted, or I can't trust anyone. Your recurring thought loops are often manifestations or proof that your mind seeks to confirm these underlying beliefs. For instance, if you have a core belief that I am incompetent, a minor mistake at work, trigger, will easily launch a thought spiral. I'm terrible at my job, I'll get fired, because it aligns with that deep-seated belief. To uncover these beliefs, ask yourself, what fundamental assumption about myself or the world would make this thought spiral seem true or logical? What am I ultimately afraid of if this thought spiral were true? Sometimes these beliefs were formed in childhood or through significant past experiences. Identifying them is a major breakthrough because it allows you to address the root cause, not just the symptoms. Why this works is because core beliefs are the foundation upon which many habitual thoughts are built. Changing the foundation is more effective than repeatedly trying to repair the cracks in the walls. In practice, after mapping a few thought-emotion sequences, look for common themes or conclusions. If many of your spirals end with thoughts of failure, the underlying belief might be, "I am a failure," or "I'm not capable." Finally, and this can be a challenging but very insightful step, is to identify any perceived payoffs or secondary gains. As strange as it sounds, sometimes our negative mental loops persist because on some level they offer a hidden benefit or help us avoid something we fear even more. For example, a loop of worrying about failure might, paradoxically, prevent you from taking risks that could lead to actual failure, and the perceived greater pain of that. So the payoff of the worry loop is a feeling of false safety or the avoidance of potential disappointment. A loop of self-criticism might keep you from putting yourself out there, thus protecting you from potential rejection by others. Or, complaining mentally might give a temporary sense of validation or a way to avoid taking responsibility. Identifying these secondary gains is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the full dynamic of the loop. Ask yourself, what does this thought pattern allow me to avoid? What uncomfortable feeling or situation does it protect me from, even if only temporarily? What benefit, however small or distorted, do I get from engaging in this loop? This works because it reveals the subtle ways we might be reinforcing our own negative patterns. Understanding these payoffs helps to loosen their grip, as you can then find healthier ways to meet those underlying needs or face those fears. For instance, someone who constantly replays resentful thoughts about being treated unfairly might realize the payoff is a sense of moral superiority or a way to avoid confronting the person directly. Recognizing this allows them to consider more constructive ways to address unfairness. Consider Alex, who constantly found himself in a loop of procrastination when faced with large projects. His trigger was the assignment of a complex task. His thought-emotion sequence would be, "This is too much. I don't know where to start," thought. Overwhelm, emotion. "I'll probably mess it up anyway," thought. Anxiety, fear of failure, emotion. "I'll just do it later when I feel more ready." Temporary relief, emotion. By decoding this, Alex realized his underlying core belief was, "I must do things perfectly," or "I am a failure." The payoff of his procrastination loop was the avoidance of the potential pain of not meeting his own impossibly high standards and the temporary relief he felt by putting it off. This understanding allowed him to start addressing the perfectionism and the fear of failure directly, rather than just battling the procrastination. Similarly, Maria often got caught in loops of jealousy when her friends shared their successes. Her trigger was seeing their achievements. Her thoughts would spiral into, "They're so much further ahead than me," leading to feelings of inadequacy and envy. Her core belief was, "My worth is based on my achievements compared to others." The perceived payoff was a strange sense of motivation born from negative comparison, but it was ultimately self-destructive. Decoding this helped her to start working on valuing her own unique journey. Becoming a thought detective is an ongoing process of self-discovery. It requires patience, honesty, and self-compassion. But each piece of the puzzle you uncover gives you more leverage to change those outdated mental programs. Once you understand the what, why, and how of your mental loops, you are much better equipped to challenge and change them. But what happens when you understand the loop? You even want to change it, yet you find yourself stuck, facing an invisible wall of resistance. Now that you've started to map out your mental terrain and identify the mechanics of your thought loops, are you prepared to confront the often unseen forces within that fight to keep those old patterns in place? The next chapter will delve into the powerful phenomenon of inner resistance and show you how to break its cycles. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 3. Break Inner Resistance Cycles. Have you ever known exactly what you should do to improve your situation, perhaps even started to decode your negative thought patterns, yet found yourself utterly unable to take consistent action? It's like your feet are stuck in wet concrete. The desire to move is there, the path ahead is clear, but an invisible force holds you captive. This profound and often frustrating experience is the hallmark of inner resistance. You might resolve to challenge your negative self-talk, only to find yourself reverting to old habits by lunchtime. You might identify a trigger for your anxiety spiral and commit to a new response, but when the trigger appears, you default to the familiar, unhelpful pattern. This isn't a sign of weakness or a lack of willpower. It's a fundamental aspect of human psychology. Our minds are often wired to prefer the familiar, even if it's uncomfortable, over the uncertainty of change. The problem we face is that this inner resistance acts as a powerful saboteur, undermining our best intentions and keeping us locked in cycles we desperately want to escape. It whispers seductive arguments. It's too hard. It won't work anyway. You're not capable of changing, or maybe it's not so bad after all. This resistance can manifest as procrastination, self-doubt, perfectionism, fear of failure, or even a fear of success. It creates a frustrating paradox. The more you try to push against it directly, the stronger it can sometimes seem to push back, leaving you feeling defeated and questioning if real change is even possible for you. This internal battle drains your energy and can make the prospect of rewiring your thoughts feel like an insurmountable task. The transformative solution lies in learning to understand and befriend your inner resistance, rather than trying to bulldoze through it or berate yourself for its presence. Resistance, in this new light, is not your enemy. It's a messenger. It's often a protective mechanism, albeit a misguided one, trying to keep you safe from perceived threats, the threat of failure, of judgment, of the unknown, or even of losing a familiar, though negative, sense of identity. The core idea is that by approaching your resistance with curiosity and compassion, instead of antagonism, you can begin to understand its underlying motivations and gently dismantle its power. When you stop fighting resistance and start working with it, you unlock a more sustainable path to change. The benefits are profound. You reduce internal conflict, conserve mental energy, and cultivate a more patient and resilient approach to personal growth. You begin to see resistance not as a stop sign, but as a signal pointing towards areas that need gentle attention, understanding, and a different strategy. It's like trying to open a stuck door. Yanking on it furiously often just jams it further, but understanding the mechanism of the lock allows you to gently jiggle the key and ease it open. The first step in breaking these resistance cycles is to acknowledge and validate the resistance without judgment. When you feel that internal pushback, the reluctance, the excuses, the sudden urge to do anything else but the thing you planned, don't immediately criticize yourself. Instead, pause and acknowledge its presence. You might say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling a lot of resistance to working on this right now. Or, I notice a strong urge to avoid this. Validating it means accepting that the feeling is there, and that it's a common human experience when facing change or discomfort. This doesn't mean you agree with the resistance or give in to it, but simply that you recognize its existence as a real internal experience. Why this works is because judgment and self-criticism often fuel resistance, creating a secondary layer of negative emotion that makes it even harder to move forward. Acceptance, on the other hand, can diffuse some of its power. In practice, this looks like a calm, internal observation. Interesting, there's that feeling of resistance again. I see you. This creates a little space between you and the resistant feeling, allowing you to observe it rather than be consumed by it. Once acknowledged, the next step is to get curious about the source of the resistance. Like a detective, gently probe what might be underneath this feeling. Ask yourself, what am I afraid might happen if I do this? What uncomfortable feeling am I trying to avoid? What belief about myself or this situation is this resistance protecting? Is this resistance trying to keep me safe in some way? For example, if you feel resistance to applying for a new job, your curiosity might uncover a fear of rejection, a fear of not being qualified, or even a fear of leaving the uncomfortable comfort of your current, familiar role. If you feel resistance to challenging a negative thought like, "I'm not good enough," you might discover an underlying fear that if you let go of that belief, you might become complacent, or that the belief somehow protects you from bigger disappointments by keeping your expectations low. Don't force answers, just gently inquire and be open to what emerges. This process of inquiry helps to reveal the often irrational logic behind the resistance. This works because resistance often operates from a place of fear or outdated assumptions. Bringing these into the light of conscious awareness allows you to assess their validity in your current reality. In practice, you might journal about your resistance. I'm resisting X. I wonder if it's because I'm afraid of Y, or if it's connected to my old belief that Z. Having gained some insight into its potential source, the third strategy is to negotiate with your resistance using small, manageable steps. Instead of trying to overcome a mountain of resistance all at once, break down the desired change into tiny, almost ridiculously small actions. If you're resisting a big task, commit to working on it for just 5 or 10 minutes. If you're resisting challenging a pervasive negative belief, decide to question it just once today in a very specific, low-stakes situation. This approach is often called the 5-minute rule, or micro-commitments. The idea is to make the initial step so easy and non-threatening that your resistance barely has a chance to activate. Often, once you start, you build a little momentum, and it becomes easier to continue. If the resistance is still strong, that's okay too. You've still taken a small step. This approach works because it bypasses the overwhelm that often fuels resistance. Small successes build confidence and create a positive feedback loop, gradually eroding the power of the resistance. For example, if you're resisting starting an exercise routine, instead of aiming for an hour at the gym, you might commit to just putting on your workout clothes. That's it. Then maybe walk for 5 minutes. Each tiny step lowers the barrier to entry. In practice, you tell yourself, I don't have to do the whole thing. I'll just do the smallest possible action for 5 minutes. Another powerful technique is to focus on the process, not just the outcome, and practice self-compassion. Resistance often gets amplified when we are overly attached to achieving a perfect outcome, or when we beat ourselves up for not making progress fast enough. Shift your focus to simply engaging in the process, regardless of the immediate results. Celebrate the effort, not just the achievement. And crucially, practice self-compassion. Understand that setbacks are a normal part of breaking old patterns. If you give in to resistance one day, don't see it as a total failure. Acknowledge it, learn from it if you can, and then gently recommit to your path the next day. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend who was struggling. This works because a harsh, critical inner voice strengthens resistance and makes change feel punitive. Self-compassion creates a supportive inner environment that makes it easier to face challenges and persist despite setbacks. For example, if you aimed to meditate for 20 minutes but only managed 5 before your mind was too restless, instead of thinking, I failed, you could think, I showed up and did 5 minutes today. That's a start, and I can try again tomorrow. This mindset shift is critical. Consider David, who wanted to start writing a book but faced immense resistance every time he sat down at his computer. The blank page felt overwhelming. He acknowledged his resistance. I feel completely blocked and want to run away. He got curious and realized his resistance stemmed from a deep fear of his writing not being good enough, of being judged. He negotiated by committing to writing for just 15 minutes a day, no matter how bad the output. He focused on the process of showing up and putting words on the page, not on writing a bestseller. He practiced self-compassion when he had bad writing days. Slowly, the resistance began to lessen as the habit of writing, even for short periods, became more familiar and less threatening. Or take Lisa, who resisted confronting her friend about a recurring issue. Her resistance came from a fear of conflict and a desire to be liked. She acknowledged this fear, validated it, and then broke down the confrontation into smaller steps. First, she wrote down what she wanted to say. Then, she practiced saying it out loud. Finally, she chose a calm moment to speak to her friend, focusing on expressing her feelings clearly and kindly, rather than on controlling her friend's reaction. The resistance didn't vanish, but by understanding it and working with it, she was able to move through it. Breaking inner resistance cycles is not about achieving a resistance-free state. That's unrealistic. It's about changing your relationship with resistance, transforming it from an insurmountable barrier into a navigable part of your growth journey. It's about patience, gentle persistence, and understanding the subtle dynamics of your inner world. But what do you fill the space with once resistance lessens and old negative thought patterns begin to fade? How do you actively build a new, more empowering mental structure? Now that you're learning to soften the grip of inner resistance, are you ready to actively construct the positive mental frameworks that will support your thriving? The next chapter will equip you with the tools to identify and intentionally install powerful new beliefs that will serve as the foundation for a rebooted mind. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint. Give this video a like and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 4: Rewire with Powerful Beliefs. What if the invisible scripts running your life, the ones dictating your reactions, your choices, and ultimately your happiness, could be deliberately rewritten by you? For many, life unfolds according to a set of deeply ingrained beliefs formed long ago, often unconsciously. These beliefs, such as, "I'm not smart enough," "I don't deserve happiness," or "good things never last for me," act like filters, coloring every experience and shaping your reality. You might have paused a thought spiral, decoded its origins, and even navigated the choppy waters of inner resistance, yet still find yourself bumping against these fundamental, limiting assumptions. The problem is that as long as these negative core beliefs remain unchallenged and unchanged, they will continue to generate the very thoughts and feelings you're working so hard to overcome. It's like meticulously weeding a garden but leaving the roots of the most invasive plants intact. Inevitably, they will grow back, choking out the new seeds you're trying to plant. These old beliefs create a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you're not capable, you'll likely avoid challenges or self-sabotage, thereby proving your belief true. This cycle can feel inescapable, making sustained positive change seem like an elusive dream, always just out of reach, no matter how many surface-level techniques you apply. The transformative solution is to engage in a conscious process of belief architecture, to become the deliberate designer and builder of a new, empowering belief system that aligns with the life you truly want to live. This isn't about naive, positive thinking or ignoring reality. It's about identifying the specific, disempowering beliefs that are holding you back and systematically replacing them with well-reasoned, supportive, and empowering alternatives. The core idea is that beliefs are not immutable facts. They are hypotheses about ourselves and the world that we've come to accept as true, often based on past experiences or messages we've internalized. And just as a scientist revises a hypothesis when new evidence emerges, you can revise your beliefs when they no longer serve you or when you decide to create a different kind of evidence. The benefits of this proactive rewiring are monumental. You'll experience increased confidence, greater resilience in the face of setbacks, a more optimistic outlook, and an enhanced ability to pursue your goals with conviction. You essentially upgrade your mind's operating system, enabling it to run new software that supports growth, happiness, and fulfillment. It's like an architect designing a new, stronger foundation for a building, ensuring it can support grander structures than the old, shaky foundation ever could. The first crucial step in becoming a belief architect is to identify your key limiting beliefs with precision. You may have already started uncovering some of these in the decoding phase, but now it's time to get very specific. Limiting beliefs often hide behind vague feelings of inadequacy or general negativity. To pinpoint them, pay close attention to your recurring negative self-talk, especially the "I am" statements, e.g., "I am a failure," "I am unlovable," or "I can't" statements, e.g., "I can't handle pressure," "I can't succeed." Also, examine areas of your life where you feel stuck or consistently fall short of your goals. What underlying belief might be contributing to that pattern? For example, If you consistently procrastinate on important projects, a limiting belief might be, I'm not capable of doing this perfectly, so it's better not to try seriously. Or if you struggle with relationships, a belief like, I'm not worthy of love, might be at play. Write these beliefs down as clearly as possible. This works because bringing a vague, shadowy belief into the clear light of day in specific written words makes it less intimidating and more manageable. It moves from being a felt sense to a concrete statement you can then analyze. In practice, you might create a limiting beliefs list and add to it as you become more aware. Once a limiting belief is identified, the next step is to challenge it rigorously. Don't accept it at face value simply because it feels true or because you've believed it for a long time. Question its validity like a skeptical lawyer cross-examining a witness. Ask yourself, where did this belief originally come from? Is it based on actual objective facts, or on past interpretations, opinions, or isolated incidents? What evidence contradicts this belief? Can I find examples from my own life or the lives of others that show this belief isn't universally true? What are the costs of holding on to this belief? How does it limit me or cause me pain? What would be different in my life if I didn't hold this belief? For example, if your belief is, I'm terrible at public speaking, you might ask, is it true that every time I've spoken it's been terrible? Have there been moments, even small ones, where I communicated effectively? What's the worst that actually happened versus what I feared? The goal here is to poke holes in the certainty of the belief, to weaken its foundation. This works because many limiting beliefs are overgeneralizations or are based on outdated information. Conscious examination often reveals their lack of solid evidence. In practice, take one limiting belief from your list and write down your answers to these challenging questions. Be thorough and honest. With the old belief destabilized, you are now ready to formulate and install a new, empowering belief. This new belief should be the positive opposite or a constructive alternative to the old one. It should be stated in the present tense as if it's already true, and it should feel resonant and believable to you, even if it's a stretch at first. For instance, if the old belief was, I'm not good enough, a new empowering belief might be, I am constantly learning and growing, and I am capable of achieving my goals, or I am worthy of success and happiness just as I am. If the old belief was, I always fail at new things, a new one could be, I embrace challenges as opportunities to learn, and every attempt brings me closer to mastery. Once you've crafted your new belief, the installation process involves actively reinforcing it through various techniques. One powerful method is affirmations, regularly repeating your new belief to yourself, both silently and out loud, with conviction and emotion. Write it down and place it where you'll see it often. Another technique is visualization. Vividly imagine yourself living as if this new belief were completely true. See yourself acting, thinking, and feeling in alignment with this new belief in various situations. How would you carry yourself? What decisions would you make? How would you interact with others? This works because the brain doesn't always distinguish vividly imagined experiences from real ones. Repeated affirmation and visualization begin to carve new neural pathways, making the new belief feel more natural and true over time. In practice, you might dedicate a few minutes each morning and evening to repeat your affirmations and visualize your life aligned with your new beliefs. Crucially, the most powerful way to solidify a new belief is to act as if it were already true and gather new evidence. Beliefs are strengthened by experience, so actively look for opportunities to behave in ways that are consistent with your new, empowering belief, even if it feels uncomfortable or unnatural at first. If your new belief is, I am confident in social situations, then consciously choose to initiate a conversation or share an opinion, even if it's a small step. Each time you act in accordance with your new belief and it leads to a neutral or positive outcome, you gather fresh evidence that supports it and weakens the old one. Pay attention to and celebrate these small wins. For example, if you're working on the belief, I am a capable problem solver, and you successfully troubleshoot a minor technical issue, consciously acknowledge it. See, I figured that out. That supports my new belief. This creates a positive feedback loop. This works because actions change feelings and thoughts. By behaving like the person you want to become, you start to internalize the beliefs of that person. In practice, identify one small action you can take today that aligns with your new belief. Then do it, and consciously acknowledge how it supports your new way of thinking. Consider Michael, who held the limiting belief, "I'm not creative." This belief prevented him from pursuing hobbies he was interested in, like painting. He identified it, then challenged it. Where did this come from? A critical art teacher in school. Is it really true I have no creativity? I solve problems creatively at work sometimes. He formulated a new belief. I am exploring and developing my creative abilities. He affirmed this daily. He then acted as if, by buying a small set of paints and committing to just play with colors for 10 minutes a day, with no expectation of creating a masterpiece. He focused on the act of exploration. Slowly, as he produced small pieces he found interesting, he gathered evidence for his new belief. The old "I'm not creative" label began to lose its power. Or think of Chloe, whose limiting belief was, "I can't trust people, they always let me down." This made her guarded and isolated. She challenged this by acknowledging that while she had been hurt in the past, not everyone had let her down, and some people had been trustworthy. Her new belief became, "I choose to build trust wisely, one step at a time, with deserving individuals." She acted as if, by taking small risks and sharing her thoughts or feelings with a colleague she felt was generally supportive, and when this was met with respect, it provided evidence reinforcing her new belief. Rewiring your beliefs is an active, ongoing process, not a one-time fix. It requires persistence, patience, and a commitment to consciously choosing what you want to believe about yourself and your potential. It's about taking the reins of your own mind and intentionally cultivating the mental landscape that will support your journey to thriving. But how do you ensure these newly planted beliefs take firm root and blossom into consistent, growth-oriented thinking in your everyday life? Having laid the groundwork for new, empowering beliefs, are you now eager to learn how to make growth-based thinking your default operating system, a natural and consistent way of approaching every aspect of your life? Our next chapter will reveal how to activate this powerful mindset daily. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 5. Activate Growth-Based Thinking. Imagine your mind as a garden. You've cleared out the weeds of negative thought spirals, understood the soil composition of your mental loops, broken through the hard ground of inner resistance, and even planted new seeds of empowering beliefs. But what determines whether these seeds flourish into a vibrant, thriving ecosystem or wither on the vine? The answer lies in the daily cultivation, the active engagement with a new way of thinking that nurtures growth. Many people grasp the idea of a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed, yet struggle to weave it into the fabric of their daily thoughts and actions. The problem is that our brains, by default, can easily slip back into fixed mindset ruts, especially when faced with challenges, setbacks, or the apparent ease with which others succeed. You might intellectually agree that effort is important, but when confronted with a difficult task, an old voice might whisper, "If I were truly smart, this would be easy," leading to frustration or abandonment. You might acknowledge that failure is a learning opportunity, but when you stumble, the immediate sting of disappointment can overshadow any potential lesson, reinforcing a sense of inadequacy. This disconnect between knowing about growth-based thinking and actively living it keeps you from unlocking your full capacity for development. It's like owning a high-performance car but only ever driving it in first gear, unaware of the power and speed you could unleash. Without intentionally activating growth-based thinking, those carefully planted empowering beliefs may not receive the consistent sunlight and water they need to truly take root and transform your experience. The transformative solution is to consciously and consistently activate growth-based thinking in your everyday life, turning a theoretical concept into a practical, lived reality. This means actively choosing to interpret challenges, effort, setbacks, and even the success of others through a lens that promotes learning and development, rather than one that judges innate ability. The core idea is that a growth mindset isn't just a passive belief. It's an active cognitive process, a set of mental habits you can cultivate and strengthen with practice. By making this activation a daily intention, you begin to hardwire your brain for resilience, persistence, and continuous improvement. The benefits are far-reaching. You'll find yourself more willing to embrace challenges, more resilient in the face of adversity, more motivated by the process of learning itself, and ultimately, more capable of expanding your abilities beyond what you currently imagine. You shift from being a passive recipient of your talents to an active shaper of your capabilities. It's like moving from being a spectator of your life to being the engaged, curious, and persistent protagonist of your own growth story. The foundational principle of activating growth-based thinking is to reframe challenges as opportunities, not threats. When faced with a difficult task or a new situation that stretches your abilities, a fixed mindset tends to perceive it as a threat, a situation where your inherent intelligence or talent will be tested and potentially found wanting. This triggers anxiety and often leads to avoidance. A growth-based approach, however, actively reframes the challenge as an opportunity to learn, to develop new skills, and to expand your capabilities. How do you do this in practice? When a challenge arises, consciously ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation, even if it's difficult? What new skills might I develop by tackling this? How can this experience make me stronger or more knowledgeable? This shift in questioning changes your entire orientation to the task. For example, if you're asked to lead a project that feels beyond your current experience, instead of thinking, I'm not qualified, I'll probably fail, you can activate growth-based thinking by saying, this is a fantastic opportunity to develop my leadership skills and learn more about project management. It will be tough, but I'll learn a lot. Why this works is because it directs your brain's resources towards learning and problem solving rather than self-protection and anxiety. It shifts your focus from proving yourself to improving yourself. A second crucial activation strategy is to embrace effort as the path to mastery. In a fixed mindset, high effort is often seen as a sign of low ability. If I have to try this hard, I must not be good at it. This can lead to a reluctance to put in the necessary work. Activating growth-based thinking involves consciously viewing effort not as a sign of deficiency, but as the indispensable ingredient for developing talent and achieving mastery. When you find yourself working hard on something, remind yourself, this effort is making me stronger. Every bit of focused work is building new connections in my brain and expanding my skills. To put this into practice, when a task requires significant effort, instead of feeling discouraged, try to reframe it as digging deep or building muscle. Celebrate the persistence itself. For instance, if you're learning a new language and struggling with grammar, actively tell yourself, this struggle is part of the process. The effort I'm putting into understanding these rules is exactly what will make me fluent. This principle works because it aligns your internal narrative with the reality of how skills are actually built, through dedicated practice and persistence. It transforms effort from a source of shame into a source of pride. Learning to seek and learn from setbacks and criticism is another cornerstone of activated growth-based thinking. A fixed mindset views failure or negative feedback as a verdict on one's abilities, leading to defensiveness or despair. In contrast, a growth-based perspective actively seeks the lessons embedded in setbacks and views constructive criticism as valuable information for improvement. When you experience a failure or receive criticism, the first step is to manage the initial emotional reaction, using the pause techniques from Chapter 1. Then, consciously shift into learning mode. Ask, what can I learn from this? What could I do differently next time? What is the valuable feedback here, even if it's hard to hear? For example, if a presentation doesn't go as well as you hoped, instead of dwelling on I'm a terrible presenter, you would actively analyze, what parts didn't land well? Was my message clear? Did I prepare enough for the Q&A? What feedback did I receive that I can use? This process transforms a negative experience into a stepping stone. Why it works is because it prevents you from internalizing failure as a permanent state and instead uses it as data to fuel future growth. It makes you more resilient and adaptable. Furthermore, actively find lessons and inspiration in the success of others. A fixed mindset can often lead to feeling envious or threatened by the achievements of others, as it might seem to highlight one's own perceived deficiencies. Activating growth-based thinking means shifting this perspective to see others' success as a source of inspiration and learning. When you see someone else succeed, especially in an area you're also working on, ask, what can I learn from their journey? What strategies did they use? What qualities did they demonstrate that I could cultivate? This doesn't mean blindly copying, but rather drawing valuable insights. For instance, if a colleague achieves a significant goal, you might reflect on their persistence, their networking skills, or their innovative approach, and consider how you could apply similar principles to your own aspirations. This works because it opens you up to learning from the entire world around you, rather than feeling diminished by comparison. It fosters a sense of shared human potential and a collaborative spirit. Consider Sarah, a student who initially struggled with advanced mathematics. Her first instinct was to think, I'm just not a math person, fixed mindset. By consciously activating growth-based thinking, she started to reframe her difficulties. When she faced a tough problem set, she told herself, this is a chance to really stretch my brain and understand this more deeply. She put in extra hours, viewing the effort as building her math muscles. When she got a poor grade on a quiz, instead of giving up, she meticulously reviewed her mistakes, sought feedback from her professor, and asked, what strategy didn't work and what can I try next? She also looked at classmates who excelled, not with envy, but with curiosity, asking them about their study habits. Over time, not only did her grades improve, but her entire attitude towards challenging subjects transformed. Or take Ben, who launched a small business that initially struggled. His fixed mindset thoughts told him he wasn't cut out to be an entrepreneur. Activating growth-based thinking, he reframed the slow start as market feedback and an iterative learning process. He embraced the effort of analyzing what wasn't working, talking to potential customers, and adapting his offerings. He saw each setback not as proof of his inadequacy, but as a crucial data point guiding him toward a more viable business model. He was inspired by stories of other entrepreneurs who faced early struggles but persisted. Activating growth-based thinking is an ongoing commitment to a particular way of interpreting your experiences. It's about choosing the narrative that empowers you to learn, adapt, and develop. It's the daily practice of watering those seeds of empowering beliefs with a mindset that expects and nurtures growth. But even with the most fertile mindset, how do you ensure your thinking remains agile and adaptive, capable of navigating the ever-changing landscape of life without getting stuck in rigid patterns? Now that you are actively cultivating a growth mindset, are you ready to develop the mental agility needed to pivot, adapt, and see the world from multiple perspectives, ensuring your growth is not confined by rigid thinking? The next chapter will explore how to build mental flexibility as a daily practice. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 6. Build mental flexibility daily. Picture your mind as a river. A healthy flowing river can navigate around obstacles, adapt its course when the terrain changes, and sustain a rich ecosystem. But what happens if the river becomes dammed or rigidly channeled, unable to deviate from a single, narrow path? It stagnates, its power diminishes, and it becomes vulnerable. Similarly, a mind that lacks flexibility, that clings rigidly to one way of thinking or a fixed set of assumptions, can find itself struggling in a world that is constantly evolving. You might have cultivated a growth mindset, understanding that abilities can develop, yet still find yourself approaching problems with the same old strategies, even when they are no longer effective. The problem we encounter is mental rigidity, the tendency to get stuck in familiar patterns of thought, to resist new perspectives, and to struggle with ambiguity or change. This can manifest as an inability to see alternative solutions, frustration when things don't go according to plan, or difficulty understanding people who think differently from us. You might find yourself saying, "This is the way I've always done it," or feeling deeply uncomfortable when routines are disrupted. This mental inflexibility can stifle creativity, hinder problem solving, create interpersonal conflict, and ultimately limit your growth. Even if you genuinely believe in your potential to learn, it's like having a sophisticated toolkit, but only ever using the hammer, regardless of the task at hand. The transformative solution is to consciously and consistently build mental flexibility daily, cultivating the ability to adapt your thinking, consider multiple perspectives, and embrace change with openness and curiosity. Mental flexibility, also known as cognitive flexibility, is the capacity to switch between different concepts, to think about multiple things simultaneously, and to adjust your thinking in response to new information or changing environments. The core idea is that just as you can train your body for physical agility, you can train your mind for cognitive agility. By making the cultivation of mental flexibility a daily practice, you equip yourself to navigate uncertainty more effectively, solve problems more creatively, learn more rapidly, and relate to others with greater empathy. The benefits are profound. You become less prone to stress when plans change, more innovative in your approach to challenges, better able to learn from diverse viewpoints, and more adaptable in all areas of your life. You transform from someone who resists or is overwhelmed by change into someone who can flow with it and even leverage it for growth. It's like becoming a skilled sailor who can adjust the sails to harness the wind, no matter which way it blows. A fundamental practice for building mental flexibility is to actively seek out and consider alternative perspectives. We all have our habitual ways of seeing the world, shaped by our experiences and beliefs. Mental rigidity sets in when we assume our perspective is the only valid one. To counter this, make a conscious effort to understand how others might see a situation, especially those with different backgrounds, experiences, or opinions. When faced with a problem or a decision, ask yourself, what's another way to look at this? If I were a different person, how might I approach this? What assumptions am I making that might not be true? Engage in conversations with people who think differently and listen with the genuine intent to understand their viewpoint, not just to refute it or wait for your turn to speak. For instance, if you're in a disagreement with a colleague, try to articulate their position to yourself as fairly and accurately as you can, even if you don't agree with it. Why this works is because it stretches your thinking beyond its default settings and exposes you to new possibilities and solutions you might not have considered otherwise. It helps to decenter your own perspective and appreciate the complexity of most situations. In practice, you might read articles or books by authors with viewpoints that challenge your own, or in a team meeting, actively solicit differing opinions before forming your own conclusion. Another powerful way to enhance mental flexibility is to deliberately challenge your own assumptions. We all operate on a vast network of assumptions, many of which are unconscious. These assumptions can be about ourselves, I'm not good at X, about others, people only care about themselves, or about how the world works, hard work always pays off. While some assumptions are helpful, others can be limiting and contribute to rigid thinking. Regularly take time to identify and question the assumptions underlying your thoughts, decisions, and reactions. Ask, what am I assuming to be true here? What if that assumption isn't accurate? What would change if I believed the opposite? For example, if you assume a particular project is too difficult for you to handle, challenge that assumption. What evidence is that based on? What if I have untapped skills or could learn what's needed? This practice works because it uncovers the often invisible frameworks that shape your thinking, allowing you to assess their validity and update them if necessary. It keeps your mental models current and relevant. In practice, when facing a recurring problem, try listing all the assumptions you're making about it, and then systematically question each one. Embracing novelty and continuously learning new things is also vital for maintaining mental flexibility. Learning something new, whether it's a skill, a language, a concept, or information about a different culture, forces your brain to create new neural pathways and adapt to different ways of thinking. It literally stretches your cognitive capacities. This doesn't have to be a formal academic pursuit. It could be learning to cook a new type of cuisine, trying a different genre of music, taking up a new hobby, or even just taking a different route to work and noticing new things. The key is to step outside your cognitive comfort zone regularly. For example, if you primarily read nonfiction, try reading a novel from a completely different genre or culture. If you always approach problems analytically, try a more intuitive or creative brainstorming technique. This works because it prevents your brain from becoming too specialized or set in its ways. It keeps your learning circuits active and agile. In practice, you might set a small goal to learn one new thing each week, however minor, or dedicate a small amount of time regularly to exploring topics outside your usual interests. Practicing comfort with ambiguity and uncertainty also builds mental flexibility. Life is rarely black and white, yet rigid thinking often craves certainty and clear-cut answers. When faced with ambiguous situations or incomplete information, a flexible mind can tolerate the uncertainty and remain open to emerging possibilities, while a rigid mind might become anxious or prematurely jump to conclusions. To cultivate this, consciously practice holding multiple possibilities in mind without needing to settle on one immediately. Allow yourself to say, "I don't know yet," and that's okay. When plans change unexpectedly, try to see it as an opportunity to adapt rather than a catastrophe. For instance, if a project's direction suddenly shifts, instead of resisting, a flexible approach would be to ask, "Okay, given this new information, what are our best options now?" This works because it trains your mind to remain open and resourceful even when things are unclear, which is a common state in a complex world. It reduces the stress associated with uncertainty. In practice, when faced with a complex decision with no obvious right answer, allow yourself time to explore various options and sit with the uncertainty before committing. Consider David, a software engineer who was very skilled but tended to be rigid in his coding practices. When new programming languages or methodologies emerged, his first reaction was often skepticism and a preference for his tried and tested methods. To build mental flexibility, he started by actively seeking out articles and tutorials on these new approaches, trying to understand their benefits from the perspective of those who championed them. He then challenged his assumption that the old way is always better by experimenting with small projects using the new techniques. He also started what-if scenarios for his current projects. What if we tried to solve this with X framework instead? This gradually made him more adaptable and innovative. Or imagine Maria, a manager who often felt frustrated when her team members didn't see things her way. She practiced mental flexibility by, during disagreements, consciously pausing her own arguments and instead saying, "Help me understand your perspective on this better." She would then try to summarize their viewpoint back to them to ensure she understood it, even if she didn't agree. This not only improved her relationships, but also led to more creative team solutions, because she was incorporating a wider range of ideas. Building mental flexibility is a daily commitment to stretching your cognitive boundaries, much like a yoga practice stretches your physical boundaries. It's about valuing adaptability as much as expertise, and curiosity as much as certainty. It ensures that your growth-based thinking isn't confined to a narrow track, but can navigate the rich, complex, and ever-changing terrain of life. But once you've cultivated this flexible, growth-oriented mind, how do you ensure these new, empowered ways of thinking become deeply ingrained, automatic, and lasting patterns? Now that you're equipped with a growth mindset and the tools to enhance your mental flexibility, are you ready to learn the secrets to making these positive changes stick, transforming them from conscious efforts into deeply embedded, empowered habits? The next chapter will focus on how to lock in these new patterns permanently. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 7. Lock in empowered patterns. Think about learning to drive a car. Initially, every action is deliberate and requires intense concentration. Checking the mirrors, signaling, steering, braking. It's exhausting. But with consistent practice, these actions become automatic, woven into a seamless driving habit. Similarly, you've now embarked on a journey to rewire your thinking. pausing thought spirals, decoding loops, breaking resistance, installing new beliefs, activating growth thinking, and building mental flexibility. These are powerful shifts, but like the novice driver, you might find that maintaining them requires constant conscious effort. The problem we now address is the natural tendency for old habits and thought patterns to resurface, especially under stress or when our vigilance wanes. You might have a few great days or weeks, feeling empowered and thinking clearly, only to find yourself inexplicably slipping back into old anxieties, self-doubts, or rigid responses. This isn't a sign of failure. It's a testament to how deeply ingrained our old neural pathways are. Without a deliberate strategy to reinforce and solidify the new empowered patterns, they risk remaining fragile, like new seedlings that haven't yet developed strong roots. The challenge is to move these beneficial ways of thinking from the realm of conscious effort to the realm of subconscious competence, making them your new default. The transformative solution is to systematically lock in empowered patterns through consistent practice, environmental design, and strategic reinforcement, making your new ways of thinking and responding robust and habitual. This is about more than just repetition. It's about creating a supportive ecosystem, both internally and externally, that nurtures these new patterns until they become second nature. The core idea is that lasting change requires not just acquiring new skills, but also diligently embedding them into the very fabric of your daily life, until they operate with the same automaticity as your old, less helpful habits once did. The benefits of successfully locking in these patterns are immense. You experience a more stable sense of well-being, greater resilience in the face of life's inevitable challenges, and a more consistent ability to live in alignment with your values and goals. You spend less energy consciously managing your thoughts, and more energy engaging creatively and productively with your life. It's like finally being able to drive smoothly and confidently, your attention freed up to enjoy the journey and navigate the road ahead, rather than focusing on every individual mechanical action. The cornerstone of locking in any new pattern is consistent, deliberate repetition. Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, thrives on repetition. Each time you consciously choose a growth-oriented thought, engage a flexible perspective, or act from an empowered belief, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with that pattern and weaken the old one. This isn't about mindless repetition, but mindful practice. Be intentional. When you catch yourself about to slip into an old pattern, consciously pause and choose the new empowered response you've been cultivating. For example, if your old pattern upon making a mistake was harsh self-criticism, and your new pattern is self-compassionate learning, you need to consistently practice that new response every single time, or as often as you catch it. This works because repetition physically changes your brain structure, making the new pathway more easily accessible over time, like wearing a path in a field by walking it repeatedly. In practice, this might involve setting daily reminders to check in with your thinking, or reviewing your new beliefs and desired thought patterns each morning to keep them top of mind. Another crucial element is designing your environment to support your new patterns. Your surroundings, both physical and social, can either nurture your new habits or trigger your old ones. Take stock of your environment. What cues or situations tend to pull you back into old ways of thinking? What changes can you make to create an environment that reinforces your empowered patterns? This might involve curating your social media feeds to include more inspiring and growth-oriented content, spending more time with people who support your growth and less with those who reinforce negativity, or creating physical spaces that promote calm and focused thinking. For instance, if you're working on being more proactive and less prone to procrastination spirals, you might design your workspace to minimize distractions and keep visual cues related to your goals prominent. This works because our environment has a powerful, often subconscious, influence on our behavior and thoughts. By shaping your environment, you create external support for your internal changes. In practice, this could be as simple as putting up a motivational quote that reminds you of a new belief, or as significant as changing social circles. Tracking your progress and celebrating small wins is also vital for motivation and reinforcement. Locking in new patterns is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's easy to get discouraged if you only focus on the distant finish line. Keep a journal or a simple log to note instances where you successfully applied your new thinking skills or when you noticed a shift in your typical reactions. When you achieve a small victory, perhaps you navigated a challenging situation with more mental flexibility than before, or responded to criticism with curiosity instead of defensiveness. Take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate your progress. This celebration doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be a simple internal well done or sharing your success with a supportive friend. This works because positive reinforcement strengthens behavior. When you acknowledge and reward your progress, you're telling your brain that this new pattern is valuable and worth repeating. In practice, you might end each day by reflecting on one instance where you successfully applied a new mental tool, no matter how small it seems. Developing a relapse prevention plan is a proactive strategy for making new patterns stick. It's realistic to expect that there will be times when you slip back into old habits, especially during periods of stress or fatigue. Instead of being caught off guard and feeling like a failure, anticipate these moments. Identify your personal high-risk situations or triggers that are most likely to cause a relapse into old thinking. Then, for each of these, brainstorm specific strategies you can use to either avoid the trigger, manage it more effectively, or get back on track quickly if you do slip. For example, if you know that tight deadlines tend to trigger anxiety spirals and fixed mindset thinking, your plan might include breaking down tasks further, practicing extra self-compassion during these times, and reminding yourself of your growth mindset principles before the pressure hits. This works because it prepares you for challenges and provides you with a predetermined course of action, reducing the likelihood of a small slip becoming a full-blown return to old patterns. In practice, this involves writing down your potential triggers and your planned responses, so you have a roadmap when things get tough. Consider James, who was working on locking in the pattern of responding calmly rather than angrily when his children misbehaved. He practiced consistent repetition by pausing and taking a deep breath each time he felt his anger rise, then consciously choosing a calm but firm tone. He designed his environment by placing a small, peaceful image on the fridge as a visual reminder. He tracked his progress by noting at the end of each day how many times he successfully managed his anger. When he had a good day, he allowed himself a small reward, like 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading. His relapse prevention plan involved recognizing that fatigue was a major trigger for his anger. So on days he felt particularly tired, he made an extra effort to be patient or asked his partner for more support. Or think of Anya, who wanted to lock in the pattern of thinking, "I am capable and resourceful," instead of, "I can't handle this," when faced with workplace challenges. She repeated her new affirmation daily. She decluttered her workspace to create a sense of calm and control. She kept a success log of all the times she successfully navigated challenges, big or small. Her relapse plan included recognizing that taking on too many tasks at once triggered her overwhelm, so she practiced saying no to extra commitments when her plate was already full. Locking in empowered patterns ensures that the hard work you've done translates into lasting, meaningful change. It's about cultivating a new baseline, a new normal for your mind, where resourceful, resilient, and growth-oriented thinking becomes your natural state. But once these patterns are firmly in place, how do you ensure this rebooted mind continues to serve you, helping you not just to cope, but to truly flourish in all aspects of your life? Now that you have the tools to make your new mental habits stick, how do you take this rebooted mind and not just maintain it, but use it to actively create a life filled with purpose, achievement, and genuine well-being? The final chapter will explore how to truly thrive with your newly empowered mindset. Remember to subscribe to Brainpower Blueprint, give this video a like, and comment with your personal opinions or suggestions for channel development. Chapter 8. Thrive with a Rebooted Mind. Imagine stepping out into a bright, clear morning after a long period of fog. The world looks sharper, more vibrant, full of possibility. This is the experience of living with a truly rebooted mind, a mind that has moved beyond merely managing negativity to actively cultivating joy, purpose, and continuous growth. You've journeyed through the essential stages, pausing the noise, decoding the old patterns, breaking through resistance, building new beliefs, activating growth thinking, enhancing flexibility, and locking in those positive changes. But the ultimate aim of this brain reboot isn't just to fix what was wrong, it's to unlock your profound capacity to thrive. The problem many encounter even after significant personal growth is a subtle drift back towards mere maintenance, or a failure to fully leverage their new mental capacities to create an exceptional life. They might have a toolkit of new strategies, but forget to use them proactively to design their future, instead only reacting when problems arise. Thriving isn't just the absence of struggle, it's the active pursuit of your potential, the engagement with meaningful goals, the cultivation of deep connections, and the consistent experience of well-being, even amidst life's inevitable challenges. Without a conscious focus on thriving, even a rebooted mind might operate below its full potential, like a powerful engine that's only ever used for short, mundane trips. The transformative solution is to consciously engage your rebooted mind in the art of thriving, using your newfound clarity, resilience, and growth orientation as the foundation for a life of purpose, connection, and ongoing fulfillment. This means shifting from a problem-solving orientation to a possibility-creating one. The core idea is that your rebooted mind is not an endpoint, but a powerful starting platform. Thriving involves intentionally applying your enhanced mental skills to all areas of your life: your work, your relationships, your personal passions, and your contribution to the world. It's about proactively using your mental tools to not just navigate life, but to sculpt it. The benefits are a life characterized by deeper satisfaction, greater achievement of meaningful goals, stronger relationships, and a resilient sense of optimism. You move from simply surviving or coping to actively flourishing, experiencing a sustained sense of vitality and purpose. It's the difference between a plant that merely survives in poor conditions and one that flourishes in a well-tended garden, reaching its full potential in beauty and fruitfulness. A key aspect of thriving is to proactively apply your growth mindset to meaningful goals. With your enhanced belief in your ability to learn and grow, you're now equipped to set and pursue goals that might have once seemed daunting. Don't just wait for challenges to come to you. Seek out aspirations that excite and stretch you. Whether it's learning a new skill, advancing in your career, starting a creative project, or improving your health, your rebooted mind understands that effort, learning from setbacks, and persistence are key. Break down your larger goals into manageable steps. Apply your problem-solving skills when you encounter obstacles, and use your mental flexibility to adapt your approach as needed. For example, if your goal is to run a marathon, your growth mindset will help you embrace the demanding training schedule, learn from days when your performance dips, and persist through the discomfort, seeing it all as part of the journey to an inspiring achievement. This works because pursuing meaningful goals provides direction, purpose, and a continuous opportunity to apply and strengthen your growth-based thinking. In practice, regularly set aside time to define your short-term and long-term goals, and then map out how your rebooted mental skills will help you achieve them. Thriving also involves nurturing deep and meaningful connections using your enhanced emotional intelligence. Your journey of self-awareness, understanding your thought patterns, and cultivating self-compassion has likely enhanced your ability to understand and connect with others. Use your mental flexibility to appreciate different perspectives in your relationships. Use your ability to pause and observe your thoughts to communicate more mindfully and less reactively. Apply your growth mindset to your relationships, understanding that they too require effort, learning, and adaptation. For instance, if you have a disagreement with a loved one, your rebooted mind can help you listen with empathy, express your own needs clearly and respectfully, and work collaboratively towards a solution, rather than getting caught in blame or defensiveness. This works because strong social connections are fundamental to human well-being, and your rebooted mind provides the tools for building healthier, more resilient, and more fulfilling relationships. In practice, make a conscious effort to be fully present in your interactions, to practice active listening, and to express appreciation and understanding regularly. A truly thriving individual embraces lifelong learning and curiosity as a way of life. Your brain reboot has shown you the power of learning and adaptation. Don't let that process stop. Cultivate an insatiable curiosity about the world, about new ideas, about different cultures, and about yourself. Read widely, engage in new experiences, ask questions, and remain open to having your perspectives challenged and expanded. This commitment to continuous learning keeps your mind agile, engaged, and constantly discovering new avenues for growth and contribution. For example, you might decide to learn a new language, not for any specific career reason, but simply for the joy of expanding your mind and connecting with another culture. Or you might regularly explore documentaries or podcasts on topics completely unrelated to your profession. This works because it keeps your neural pathways active and your mind open, preventing stagnation and fostering a continuous sense of wonder and engagement with life. In practice, dedicate regular time for learning and exploration, even if it's just a few hours a week, and follow your curiosity wherever it may lead. Furthermore, thriving often involves contributing to something larger than yourself. Having worked on your own inner world, you may find a natural desire to use your strengths, insights, and compassion to make a positive impact on others or on a cause you care about. This doesn't necessarily mean grand gestures. It can be expressed in many ways: mentoring someone, volunteering your time, contributing your skills to a community project, or simply being a more supportive and encouraging presence in the lives of those around you. This sense of purpose and contribution is a powerful component of a thriving life. For example, having overcome significant personal challenges using the principles of this reboot, you might feel drawn to share your experiences to help others on a similar path. This works because contributing to the well-being of others often brings a profound sense of meaning and fulfillment, taking the focus off your own concerns and connecting you to a larger human experience. In practice, reflect on your values and passions and identify ways, however small, that you can contribute your unique talents to make a difference. Consider Lena, who after rebooting her mind, decided to apply her newfound confidence and growth mindset to a long-dormant dream of starting her own sustainable craft business. She set clear goals, embraced the steep learning curve of entrepreneurship, and used her mental flexibility to adapt to market demands. She also nurtured her relationships by consciously applying her communication skills with suppliers and customers. She committed to lifelong learning by constantly researching new sustainable materials and techniques. Finally, she found a way to contribute by mentoring other aspiring female entrepreneurs in her community. Her life became a testament to thriving, filled with purpose, connection, and continuous growth. Or look at Sam, who used his rebooted mind to transform his career from something he merely tolerated into a role where he felt genuinely engaged and impactful. He sought out projects that challenged him, built stronger, more collaborative relationships with his colleagues by using his improved emotional intelligence, and constantly looked for ways to innovate and improve processes, driven by his ingrained curiosity and growth mindset. He also started volunteering his professional skills to a local nonprofit, adding a deep layer of meaning to his life. Thriving with a rebooted mind is an ongoing dynamic process. It's about using your inner strength, clarity, and adaptability not just to weather the storms of life, but to actively seek out the sunshine, to plant new gardens, and to help others flourish alongside you. It's about understanding that your mental well-being is not a destination to be reached, but a way of traveling, a continuous unfolding of your highest potential. The tools and insights you've gained are your companions on this lifelong journey, empowering you to not just live, but to truly come alive, embracing each day with courage, curiosity, and a profound capacity for joy and contribution. This journey of rebooting your mind is perhaps one of the most significant investments you can make, an investment that pays dividends in every aspect of your existence. allowing you to craft a life that is not only successful by external measures, but is also deeply, authentically, and sustainably fulfilling. What an incredible journey it has been, from the first moment of questioning the power of your thoughts to this point of envisioning a life of active thriving. You have explored the depths of your mind, uncovered hidden patterns, and equipped yourself with powerful tools to consciously create new pathways for positive change. Remember that the essence of this brain reboot lies not just in the knowledge acquired, but in its consistent application. Each day offers a fresh opportunity to practice these principles, to choose growth, to cultivate flexibility, and to live from a place of empowerment. The mind is a garden that requires tending. With ongoing care and attention, it will continue to blossom, yielding a harvest of resilience, purpose, and joy that will enrich your life and the lives of those you touch. You hold the blueprint. Now, continue to build your most vibrant life. Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey through Brain Reboot, rewiring negative thoughts to thrive. We hope you found immense value in these chapters and feel equipped and inspired to take control of your inner world. Your mind is your most powerful asset, and by learning to understand and reshape its patterns, you've unlocked the potential for profound and lasting change. We sincerely appreciate you investing your time with us. If this audiobook has resonated with you, please consider giving it a like, sharing your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and subscribing to Brainpower Blueprint for more content designed to help you unlock your potential and live your best life. Your engagement helps us grow and continue creating resources for everyone on the path to personal mastery.